It's nearly the end of the year, pirates. KW-48, turning the mirror around. Sometimes even smiling makes my face ache. It's a quote from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Anyway, last week I believe I was complaining about the rainy, wet cold that suddenly came upon us. Fortunately, the rain only lasted another day, but the cold decided it had real purpose in life. The sudden change in the weather isn't a bad thing, and the whinging didn't really have anything to do with the temperature, rather the fact that it rain-sleet-snowed all the way through it, with very little warning. And so we had a couple of days of unpleasantness, which as transitions go is not really so bad. It was Thursday in the night when it went properly cold. I checked the weather station before going to bed. The stillness of the night and the clarity of the sky hinted at a cold one. But the weather station read 2.6 degrees. Surprisingly warm, to be honest. By Friday morning it was -8, and the 1 metre cubes of water that are the rainwater collectors had turned completely solid. That was some serious day after tomorrow shit. Usually they frost up around the edges and the freeze slowly makes its way to the centre over a few days or longer. To do it all in one night was impressive stuff indeed. Do you know how much energy you have to extract from a cubic metre of water to turn it into ice? It's a lot. At some point between now and the end of the year, the snow will all melt and the sun will come out before the new year portion of the winter starts. But for now, it's not been above zero since then. So for a couple of days, I was in the kitchen. I made ridiculous quantities of red onion jam and still have well over 200 onions left. I moved the strings of white onions from the drying room to the kitchen. Onions shouldn't be kept anywhere too cold and definitely nowhere too wet. The dry warmth of the kitchen should keep them at their best right the way through until spring. The plan was to turn the reds all into jam, but I don't think I could possibly eat much more, no matter how long the winter. It is a delicious sweet and sour condiment that goes with just about anything, but it doesn't have to go with everything. I did the pumpkin thing I mentioned a few weeks ago, pumpkin puree again in excessive quantities. I know you can do exciting things with it, but mostly I'm going to be using it as a base for other flavours, I think. Imagine anything you can make with tinned tomatoes and pumpkinify it is the plan. I dried hundreds of apples, pears, quinces and grapes. I've just had a thought it's quite easy not very impressive to dry 100 grapes, but anyway. I'd like to plant a whole lot more grapes, just for sultanas, raisins and currants. They've all gone into large pots to be enjoyed as sweet snacks in the cold, and I'm very much looking forward to them. By far the most energy expended this week was on firewood. I cleared every last lump of tree from the driveway, chainsawed the majority of it. All the stout logs have been chopped and mostly stacked. All the thinner stuff has been layered up into 2 metre long stacks to be dealt with this week. And all of this with a gammy foot. The fluid in the blister finally got reabsorbed, and then it started really to be a bother. For a couple of days, it was actually properly painful. I considered hacking it off at the knee and going full pirate peg leg, but in the end decided for a healing cream and large amounts of ibuprofen. Yesterday, I was still being a bit hobbly, and it is by far at its worst when I wake up. But I think I can say with some degree of certainty that we're just about over it. And by this time next week, I'll have forgotten all about it, and if anyone brings it up, I'll look at them quizzically and try to figure out what on earth they're talking about. Me? Injure myself? Why would I go and do a thing like that? And now this bit. COP30. Trying to be constructive with thoughts around COP30. And finally, if there is a rather listified diary tone to this week's chapter, and it strikes anyone as a little unusual, I hope that the generous amongst you realise I didn't actually feel awesome this week. And on top of that, a lot of energy is going into not spitting about the fucking useless absolutely everybody involved in climate politics and science communication in the last 30 years. And the defeat of tipping points, 1.5, and the real doomsday cult, COP. It has been prominent in my mind. But I don't think there's much to be said here that isn't utterly predictable and probably boring. My thoughts have developed from rage and disappointment into how can the barracks now be useful? I'm not convinced that the answer is the collapse lab. I don't want to be angry at the entire world and everyone in it, but I do get close sometimes. The entire world and everyone in it is doing next to nothing. Politics is dead, science has neutered itself. But what about the rest of you? The question is, why isn't anyone doing anything for themselves, their families, their loved ones, in anticipation of what we know is coming? And I might have an answer. Maybe they're waiting for someone to tell them what to do. I'm not going to be that person, but maybe equipping people in the now is more useful than pseudo-intellectualizing about future humans. So I'm going to have a think about that. Watch this space. Much piratey love. Your loving Pirate Ben. XO. XO.